Now, what did you bring me for?
Guys, try not to starve on your way to hitting the like button. April 23rd, 2026, and I imagine that video best explains the absolute nonsensical and honestly hilarious unexplainable fear the under-average Liberal and even further under-average NDP politician and media pundit has regarding Pierre Poilievre. As you can see, despite the obviously inanimate object posing no threat, even approaching existential, to the life or well-being of the inattentive and mostly lazy feline, the unforgettable panic the animal experiences when faced with the dread of having something it does not understand dropped on it, it still manages to use its cat-like reflexes to complain that the toy is, in fact, the scariest and most intrusive thing the world has ever had the audacity to claim it should accept within its own safety bubble. No one among the lucidly existing members of Canadian society will ever quite understand the violent reaction both the red and blue tie have when the mere sound of Pierre's voice rings out across the world of YouTube or Parliament. But we're sure glad it does. The entertainment is simply beyond endless and very cathartic. But I guess that's what happens when you vote for unfulfilled promises instead of the actual ability to get things done. God forbid merit should be something you compete with instead of ad hominem attacks on those far more qualified than your narratively captured and principally devoid immortal souls. Somebody asked in the comments section of yesterday's video whether I was from Alberta, and quite frankly, sir, thank you for noticing, but no. I am an Ontario resident, and while you don't see too many of us preaching your chosen gospel out in the wild the way I am prone to do, there are more of us conservative merit believers than anyone cares to understand. That's largely because most of us are just now waking up to the idea that the meaning of both liberal and New Democrat have shifted so far into the salesmanship of existential fear and societal punishment mechanics that we can no longer afford to accept the reward of being a good citizen and must instead prove our worth as the province's anti-coward representatives. In other words, the status quo that Ontario held up as the moral high ground has eroded so much that we know change is needed, and the best way to get it is by finding those who know they aren't alone and simply needed to find someone loud enough and talented enough to be heard without suffocating, like Northern Perspective, or yours truly. So yes, the Alberta mindset exists in Canada. It was just shameful to display it, and now many of us are beyond caring what our neighbors think. Once you realize that what you were taught to be afraid of was simply the shadow of an object one-tenth your size and only dangerous if you swallow it, it becomes much easier to brush off the threats and insults of a population that knows you're right and just hates that they have to admit that they might have been wrong. In fact, that's the basis. All good comedy is built on if you want it to last longer than 5 minutes in this entertainment economy. So no, John Francis 1528, I won't be told what to do by a pathetic representation of a faulty personality unable to find the motivation to remove the numerical identifier from his obviously mass-produced YouTube profile. But I will continue to in on the increasingly proven fact that Ontarians aren't the narratively captured automatons the people in charge wanted to believe we are. And on that note, let's get into the topic of the day, the absolute genius of Alex Jones. For those who don't know, on April 20th, 2026, the brand Infowars was forcibly purchased by another long-standing and objectively hilarious brand, The Onion. On the surface, those two entities seem to have no relation to one another, and if you are looking in as an outsider, that is something you could be forgiven for believing. One is a conspiracy-laden platform with educated guesses created by a man who cut his teeth on the Bohemian Grove and ultimately did himself in with a horrifically incorrect story about Sandy Hook Elementary School. The other, named The Onion, is an openly satirical comedy site that only cares about the truth when it can be used to enhance the humor and delight it provides to its subscriber base. Two very different approaches to entertainment and news delivery, leading many to ask exactly why would The Onion be interested in a brand like Infowars? They don't even share an audience. Well, the answer is actually very simple. What Alex Jones created was essentially a satirical comedy platform framed as an insider news source. While he was pulling random theories and ideas out of his seemingly endless Rolodex of anonymous connections and contacts, Alex became very proficient at providing what one might call a sort of manufactured authority almost solely based on his 0.8% accuracy rate. Once Alex had Bohemian Grove, the surveillance state, and the biggest to openly speculate, and was the biggest to openly speculate that the Charlottesville massacre might have been paid for, he was able to create a persona that painted himself as something akin to a prophet when it came to calling out the machinations of the globalist and elitist desire for world domination. Jones's audience is often called the dumbest people on earth, but the truth behind those rabidly loyal and purposely forceful fans is that they are not even on their worst possible day stupid. Jones's audience was actually the first to recognize that something about the things Jones was talking about seemed manufactured. And while they followed Jones as if he was some kind of god, that was mostly because once your chosen god performs one miracle of performative journalistic integrity, you tend to believe that everything he does is the will of God himself. Alex Jones was able to build Infowars mostly because there was a portion of the population of the United States and the world that was so starved for a narrative that made any sense at all, they clung on to the one thing that actually made them feel like trying to connect the dots on the chart wasn't actually a crime. And Infowars gave them that. And you say, but comic, that seems like a very underhanded and dirty trick. Why would you ever say that Alex Jones was a genius when all he really did is prey on the vulnerable and downtrodden? He's an asshole, not a miracle worker. But you're correct. That's 100% the moral stance to take. But this is entertainment, not church. In this business, you see a need and you fill it to the absolute best of your ability, which is exactly what Alex Jones did. Alex Jones is the reason counter narrative comedy can even exist, and when you frame it as such, you begin to understand why The Onion was so interested in taking over his platform. What Alex accidentally did was create the perfect vehicle for real news delivered as if it was fake, instead of, as Alex stubbornly leaned into, delivering fake news as if it was occasionally and accidentally accurate. In satire, the accuracy of the information takes a back seat to the presentation and entertainment provided. Generally, as long as no one claims that what they are displaying is either true and instead leans into the based on a true story genre Hollywood loves to dive into, that form of comedic delivery remains immune from the criticism even by the most societally consumed social justice warriors. What was flawed wasn't Alex's business model. What was flawed was within how he presented his comedic political points to his audience, as if they were truth, instead of being sure to park them in territory of here's what could be true if you think about it in the right way. Both The Onion and Alex Jones realized as they built their respective media behemoths that people have largely come to terms with the idea that the truth is actually and mostly boring. What you will generally witness when perusing the comment sections of YouTube videos and even mainstream news itself isn't people seeking truth. Generally, those commenters are looking to prove that their version of the truth is the one that you would see as most accurate if you only had enough brain cells to rub together. Personally, I found Jones to be a master of his craft for the time he was allowed to do it and absolutely invaluable to the independent media platforms. While his downfall was entirely, admittedly, his own fault, I will assert that the price he paid for that misstep was far too harsh and massively overblown for the crime he actually committed. Alex Jones wasn't stupid. No one who builds a multi-billion-dollar brand is in any way stupid. Understand that when Donald Trump says Alex Jones is low IQ, what he means is that Alex is strategically careless. A high IQ, media savvy man like Alex Jones knows better than to do what he did with Sandy Hook, so when Trump says Alex is a dumb person, it's because Alex was the architect of his own demise, and that is, yes, a very dumb thing to do, made even dumber by how smart Alex Jones actually is. And no one knows more about being strategically bombastic than the master of the intimidatingly strong statement of authority, Donald Trump himself. But Alex's loss is the Onion's gain, and quite frankly, I'm looking forward to seeing the parody of Alex Jones that Mr. Tim Heidecker is able to entertain us with now. Because if there is one thing that could be potentially funnier or more entertaining than Alex Jones himself, it's a parody of Alex Jones created to deliver a version of the facts that only a satirically driven news source could possibly get away with. Remember that the truth is boring. You know it, I know it, the CBC knows it, and every single news pundit and politician has come to terms with it. No one knows what the truth actually is, and anyone who tries to tell you they do is a snake oil salesman wearing whatever shade the color wheel told them to put on that day. Consider that a warning aimed at the trolls and those who want to tell any audience they are just objectively correct. Remember that the next time anyone tells you that your neighbors are dangerous, your politicians are objectively evil, or that the ozone layer has decided that you personally must burn in the eternal fires of hell for wanting a fireplace in your basement, most of what you're watching is just for show. And as I've said multiple times before, news is not to be found on this channel. This channel is for your brain. Catharsis, a release valve. A reminder that it's okay to allow your brain to draw a horse when the docs tell you you're supposed to draw a whale. Alex Jones made that okay. The Onion will make it even better. Consider this permission to be passive outliers when it comes to interpreting the things that your chosen influencers tell you. Ultimately, the only truth you'll ever come to terms with is the one you're able to justify within your own lived reality. You have a brain, then you're allowed to use it, no matter who tells you you're too stupid to be allowed to think.